the news of the weekend was Mel Tucker is suspended without pay from Michigan State football for sexually harassing Brenda Tracy, who he hired to come work with his football program as an advocate for sexual abuse survivors. If you don't know her story, I'm sure you do by now. Anyone listening to this, I'm sure you know what has happened. I don't need to rehash the facts, but I will just do it at the top just to do so. She was gang raped by football players, I believe, years ago, and has now since become a prominent activist for women's rights and for survivors of situations of sexual assault. And she has gone around the country to a lot of programs, a lot of schools, and put a lot of good in a lot of places. I think what she was doing at Michigan State for a time was pretty great and pretty impactful. While this was happening behind the scenes, these two built a relationship together, and the allegations come through an article through USA Today, which I highly recommend everybody read. If you have not, I recommend you read it in its entirety. I know ESPN sort of broke the news. There was not a lot of substance in ESPN's report. There is so much substance, years worth of substance and evidence in the USA Today report. And from what I know, that's why Michigan State made the move to actually suspend him without pay, was because all of this information was made knowledgeable to them through this USA Today report. So highly recommend you go back and read it. But long story short, there's a dispute between Mel and Tracy on the consent in their relationship. Tracy says that this was non-consensual. Mel ends up masturbating on a Zoom call to her. She was uncomfortable. Mel claims this was consensual phone sex. Never mind that his wife is at home. He's got two kids that just graduated from Lansing Catholic. Just messy, total mess. I'll throw it to you. We are both Michigan State football fans. Not that that matters here, but I guess in a weird way, it does matter here. Like, fandom jades a lot of people's views of this shit. So let me just preface this. What you're going to hear from me, I'm a Michigan State football fan. When it's my turn to talk, I'm going to talk like a Michigan State football fan, and that may be a little jaded, but I'll throw it to you first. You're a Michigan State fan through and through. What do you make of all of this?
Yeah, I think one thing that I'm not jaded about, though, is when it comes to situations involving this. I think this is pretty, to me, cut and dry. I think you made a good point. The USA Today article, I think, lays out every single thing. It actually took me a good amount of time to read through with all the details in it. I was up till damn near 4 a.m. on Saturday, just kind of rereading it and looking after all this when this news broke and getting all the details about it. And look, everyone wants to look to be like, oh, it's a consensual phone sex thing. It's this, it's that. It's not that in my eyes. It just truly isn't. It's just, as a leader of young men and a football coach for one of the, in my eyes, most prominent college football programs, at least to me, and call that homerism, call it what you want. I think the Michigan State football brand is extremely strong. You cannot do things like this that even give an opportunity to be looked at the wrong way. You just, even when you say it out loud, G, like when you just said it and explained the story, the head football coach of Michigan State University, who is a married man with two kids, on Michigan State's football dime, might I add, was on a trip and was on Zoom masturbating or having phone sex with a woman who he hired for his football program to talk to them about sexual assault, and she's a sexual assault survivor. It's just, I can't wrap my head around the fact that someone could be that stupid. And I'm not saying I'm the perfect person and I've never done anything stupid in my life, but there's also situations where you don't have to do something stupid and you do the right thing. And I don't think the right thing was done about this. And the detail that rubbed me kind of most the wrong way is that once this was filed and once these things came out, the first thing Mel did was lie about something that he was caught in 4K doing. He said that he wasn't in Florida when this call happened. And they were like, I mean, yeah, you were. We know you were. You flew down there. Here's the files. Here's everything. Like, what? So you immediately started off by lying, and you're getting caught in lies. You lie again about the relationship that you had with Miss Tracy. And it's an awful situation. It's an awful look for the university. And then as far as, I'm sorry, I'm rambling here, G. I got like a lot of things on this,
No,
I
go.
guess.
Take your time.
And looking at it also from the bubble of just Michigan State as a whole and how these situations unfold with them, everything is so reactionary with Michigan State and how they address these situations. Nothing's proactive with these situations. Even in the press conference yesterday, when Haller talked about this and broke everything down, he was unable to articulate that there's certain details about this case that he can't speak on. And I find it even troubling myself just because I don't know, I'm not a lawyer and I don't understand how these things unfold particularly. But to my knowledge, when a Title IX complaint is filed, everything is confidential at that point. The only thing that Michigan State knows is that a Title IX complaint, a sexual harassment complaint, was placed against Mel Tucker. No other details come out. After that, the Title IX department goes through an investigation of their own, circumstances, own people doing it. And that hearing, I think, is for Mel going to be October, the first week of October. So
The bye week.
Yeah, the bye week.
Is that a coincidence?
Huh?
Is that like, how did that come to be that the hearing is on
I don't even know.
Yeah,
to me,
I don't either.
To me, it's confusing to me that it was in December last year, and obviously you got to get the right information and investigation on this. But like, it was last December when the complaint was made.
Yeah.
So it's such a gray area. I think that's what me and you talked about. There's such a gray area on like how that process goes and how the details unfold. But just to wrap up my point, because I have been rambling, I don't think that Mel Tucker should be the football coach of this program. I think they're suspending him is right now as a formality. He's suspended without pay. I think they're literally doing that so that when the investigation or the hearing does happen, which I think he's going to lose. I think they know he's going to lose that. He already started off the case by lying, so that's never a good start. And he also tried to settle. So it's just not looking good for him at all. He's suspended without pay. I think he ends up being fired after his hearing takes place. And I don't think he should be the head football coach of Michigan State.
Okay.
And I don't think he's a good person. And I hate saying that about people because I do, everyone makes mistakes. Everyone does things that are bad. But when you do something that is bad, that doesn't make you a good person. In my eyes, it makes you a bad person. Now, maybe how you react afterwards, you can change that narrative. But in my eyes, if you do something like this, it just makes you a bad person. It does.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of the way to be generous, even though he probably doesn't deserve generosity. But in the most generous interpretation of what has happened here for Mel Tucker, at a minimum, we have documented evidence that he participated in a non-marital relationship with a prominent rape victim that he hired to help heal at this university that so desperately needs healing. That's not a crime. That's insanity. And it's extremely careless. Like, just let's talk like morally. That's a horrible husband move, horrible father move. You have a family at home. Two, he lied about where he was when the incident occurred. If his side of the story is correct, I don't understand what that is. That's either careless and stupid and wrong, or just he's lying. Like, again, that's not a crime as far as I know, but it's possibly something that could be the main reason he gets convicted in this case of a quote unquote crime. And three, the fact that he did, like, it seems like he had a team in place, according to the USA Today article. Like, he had measures from his side here in place trying to get this swept under the rug, whether that was settling with Tracy before this came public, or whether that was trying to get the case dismissed at Michigan State University. It just seems like, and I'm not saying that's a move of someone that's guilty or not guilty, but like, steps were taken to try to get this dismissed from Mel's perspective. Obviously, it would have been better for Mel if this never comes out, but those three things added together are pretty incriminating for me. You know this. I come from a place where I have not been a fan of Mel Tucker for football reasons, right? So it's not enjoyable for me to like come out and have this be the reason that Mel has a downfall as Michigan State's football coach, but overwhelmingly call it bad person if you want to, call it whatever you want with him. I think the number one thing I would say is a takeaway on who Mel Tucker is at this point. He's someone whose actions don't show that he cares about Michigan State at all. Like if you truly care about this school, you would never do this ever. And like the audacity of this man to one, do it and do this to his family, but do this to a school that's going through all this and this Spartan community that so desperately needs healing is insane to me. It's such a black mark on his character. And it's hard for like the act alone is one thing, but like, you know, this Mel has been publicly complaining that he needs more money while knowing this is happening behind the scenes. Like this man has so much audacity as a human. And I can't really comprehend it, honestly. Like you called it stupid. It's definitely stupid, but it's like another level. It's like on a tier of stupid I can't even possibly understand. Like there's levels to stupid, and this just makes no sense for me with Mel. So I don't know. Now I'm rambling. We're probably going to go back and forth rambling. There's a lot more I want to get to on this, including Mark Dantonio's return to this program in some capacity. We don't know what that capacity is at this point yet, but so you are happy with the result though, that and you said this, you believe that this is going to be a firing, like that's a foregone conclusion.
I believe so. Now obviously take that with a grain of salt. I'm not over here trying to be a reporter or anything like that, but in my eyes, to me, it seems like they're suspending him without pay until the hearing happens, and then they'll have cause. So because I feel like Mel's gonna fight this. He's gonna be like, I didn't commit a crime, I want the rest of the money on my contract. By going through these steps, I think Michigan State, and it sounds bad, but like by Michigan State taking these steps, it'll assist them in not having to pay Mel the rest of his contract. Because otherwise we still owe him a little bit over like $80 million, by the way.
Can we just say, I've been saying it for many other reasons, but can we officially call this the worst contract in college football history?
Yes.
That seems unequivocally clear at this point. This is the worst contract ever given to someone. Yeah. Okay. So let me ask you this, because I'm genuinely curious about this. I don't think it's a done deal here. I hope so, and I think it should be, but I don't think it's a done deal, that it's a 100% foregone conclusion that Mel is found guilty at the hearing. What happens if he's not?
He's fired either way.
How though? Because that's going to get so messy if he's found not guilty and they fight. Like there's a crack in the door that could happen.
There is, but this is, for me, this is how I see it. He's fired either way. All this is what's going to transpire. God damn, you're right. Now you got me. I'm sorry. What transpires after the firing? Because there's gonna be lawsuits. There's gonna be things to recruit money from contracts. That's all that is. I think the firing's happening. That's happening.
So what's happening? You probably know this from talking to your Spartan circles I'm not in, but like, what's happening on the day-to-day of the football program right now? Like, is Mel completely cut off? He's not talking to players. He's not talking to anyone. The football program's approaching this as if he is gone and there's nothing, even though he's just suspended.
To my knowledge, yeah, because he's suspended without pay, and he's out of the facility. He's not having contact with people.
Okay,
I think the players were made aware of the situation, but I don't know if they were made aware of the situation by Mel.
Okay,
so like it's cut off.
Okay, I should have said this at the top. Also, I recommend the USA Today article. The one other thing I would really recommend, as far as content goes, as a result of this, is Sheehan's podcast, the Locked On. He did a really good job. It was just like 10 minutes reactionary stuff. He does daily episodes, so if you want more of that from a Michigan State fan perspective, you should listen to it. But I give him credit. I want to give credit to a lot of elements of this, actually, real quick, Cart. I'm very pleased with how Michigan State fans have responded to this, because when it was 12:08 in my bed on Saturday night and I'm reading this, realizing no one has even like tweeted it yet, and this article is just out there, my first gut reaction was that Michigan State fans were going to rush to defend Mel here. And they didn't. Like across the board, as far as I have seen, everyone has been like, is this guy serious? Get him out. And that is the correct reaction. That's how it should be. I'm very pleased that that's been the case. I think on the flip side of this, I think for the most part, until Mark Dantonio got involved, which I'll speak to, Michigan fans have been pretty gracious of this. Like, I think a lot of Michigan fans have across the board been like, this is messed up. Michigan State fans deserve better. And I don't know if that's meant completely honestly or in jest or what, but like this could have been really messy. And some Michigan fans are idiots and making Tuck coming jokes. You shouldn't do that. But I think for the most part, like everyone in this state across the rivalry on both ends is just like, this is crazy. Like this guy's such a loser. You got to get him out. So in a sense, things went pretty respectful there, and I'm pleased by that. I hope he does get fired. Like I said, I think it's like 95% that they're just going to find him guilty, and you're right, he's fired. I just fear that 5% of like, if they find him not guilty and then they fire him, and they didn't fire him just now, like if they have enough to fire him, I kind of wish they would have just fired him. And I get why they didn't. I know it's about money and it's too much money, so you have to do that. But I'm a little fearful, because I think if Mel somehow is found not guilty in this messy situation, like, and then they fire him, then that hangs forever. Like if you don't get to a point where you can fire him with cause, like this is gonna, I just want him gone to get to the, maybe I'm trying to fast forward, but I want to get to the point of like what's next already. And that's going to be hard to do. This is going to take a while, but like the more that Mel is fighting this, the longer that takes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
I'm scared. Okay. I have a couple other things on this. Sorry, this is going really long, but obviously it's big news and I feel like we should talk about it as thoroughly as we can. I think, I gave credit to Michigan fans there and Michigan State fans more so, but there are some things that are bothering me with how people are interpreting what has happened here and now where the discourse has gone 2 days later. I just want to say this in general. We as fans don't have to go conspiracy theory mode every time there is a scandal. And I think that's a really hard thing to do as fans of college programs and as fans of people who make bad decisions sometimes that put their universities in really horrible positions. But not every scandal is a conspiracy. Sometimes scandals are just scandals. Like sometimes the football coach just does something horrible and it's just that. Like the football coach did something idiotic and that's it. Sometimes there's not like massive cover-ups or massive fuck-ups from the university. And I think like there is a lot of confusion here on the timeline because, you know, the Title IX was filed months ago and the investigation concluded in July, and Haller has reported that, right? And I get that when you take all that as bullet points on paper, that doesn't look great for a university that has struggled to react quickly to issues and reports of sexual harassment and assaults. But they came out yesterday, like the people who wrote the original report came out and said, like, by all accounts, MSU has handled this correctly. And I just want to make that clear. Like, just because we don't have all the information or just because something seems a little messy on paper, not every scandal is a conspiracy theory. Like, we don't need to go down the web of like, Michigan State was covering this up and has known, and he should have been fired 12 years ago. Like, none of that's true in my case. From my read on this, I think Michigan State has handled this very well, not perfectly, but about as well as you could have. And I think they deserve credit for that instead of skepticism on, did they really fuck this up again? Because this is a hard, like these situations are hard to manage. Michigan State has been hit with more of them than any program ever should in the last 5 years. And I think from my perspective, they've done a good job here. And I just want to say that.
Yeah, I think it's just tiring at some point, like this always happening with, you know, the school you support, I guess. It's just like it's one thing after another. You had the nasty situation, you had the shooting tragedy, obviously, the healing still going on from both those situations, and then you had this come up. It's just like, damn, when's it gonna? I don't know. In situations like this, I always look to leadership and how they both react and how they are proactive in these situations. And honestly, I don't really believe in Michigan State's leadership right now. And I think that it does have something to do with that. So I don't know if that's necessarily a scandal per se, but whether you say they are, doing the right thing and responding the right way, I do think that at some point you have to look. It's not just like, oh, it could happen anywhere situation. It could happen anywhere, but at the same time, leaders are put in place to be proactive and not reactive in my eyes. So I do look to those people somewhat. And there's not a certain person or people that actually handle that. I'm just saying Michigan State leaders in general, I think, could do a better job of, I use the phrase being proactive.
Yeah.
And that goes in all situations.
I think that's fair. I'm trying to go through the specifics of this situation and be like, okay, what could Michigan State have done better than what they did here? Like, okay, they knew there was a Title IX report filed. That's all they knew. That this has been confirmed. Michigan State knew no details, no specifics, nothing on this matter other than there was a Title IX complaint filed against Mel Tucker. That's all they knew. Could you have suspended Mel the moment there's a complaint? Sure. But again, it's a complaint. You don't know if it is even real or not. Anybody can file a complaint. And two, it's not protecting anyone's identity for them to suspend him proactively like that. Like if they suspend Mel, then they have to answer to PR questions from everyone across the world on why is he suspended. And if the complaint here, if Tracy is not ready and willing to go public yet, what's Michigan State supposed to do? Oh, we suspended our football coach, but we can't tell you why? That would never fly. So I think in a sick way, like the fact that it waited until now, until Brenda got to come out on her own terms with these allegations, was the only way they could do it that's respectful of her. And now the moment that it's public from her side, okay, Mel's suspended. There you go.
Yeah. So, but everything you just said right there, I thought should have been said at the press conference. It wasn't said. So now it leaves like a gray area, and it sheds a bad light on the community and on the school for a situation that's obviously insane in the first place. But like everything you just said had to be information found out by me and you, or other sources reporting on it. It wasn't said yesterday at the press conference, and that's the thing that's what leaders are supposed to do. They're supposed to lay out things like that, and that wasn't laid out at all.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Okay.
And last thing, absolutely insane situation, like just insane. I had to tell my mother yesterday. She's like, "What's all this Mel Tucker news that's going on?" I was like, yeah, it's wild. My head football coach was masturbating on a Zoom call with a sexual assault victim. That's literally what happened.
We always do this as a trope, but like we always say, it's not hard to be a good person. Is it hard to not jack off to a rape victim that you hired on a Zoom call? Is that hard?
Seems pretty easy not to do.
Seems pretty simple to avoid that one. Crazy. Okay. I feel bad pivoting to like the football ramifications of this, but I want to do this. And I have some Mark Dantonio stuff to get off, but, what does this mean for Michigan State football? Because this is obviously bad. Mel had a lot of recruiting momentum, even if the on-field results weren't great last year. Is this like rock bottom from your perspective? This is a hard reset, obviously. Where do you hope Michigan State goes? Do you believe Harlan Barnett could be the guy? Do you think Mark Dantonio's back and could be back for good? Where's this headed?
I think that the situation of having Harlan be the intern coach and Mark be a advisory role, and apparently this advisory role is going to have him like in a headset, either in the booth in the box or on the sideline. Apparently, I think the details on that are still going to come out, but I think it adds some stability to the program. I think that Mark is a guy who does a great job of instilling a great football culture and things like that. I also think he's a really good football coach. I thought that Mel was I'm trying to think how I want to say this. Being a good football coach isn't just what you do as far as like play calling and X and O's. Like it's some of the stuff that Mel does, like the photo shoots, the being appealing to recruits and kids, like being a motivator. There's so many factors that go into coaching beyond just X's and O's and things like
It
that.
is hilarious that you started the good list for Mel with photo shoots, though. Like, I just want to say that.
I
But you're
mean,
right. You're right. But it's absolutely hilarious that the top of the list for Mel Tucker's strengths is photo shoots.
in regards to recruiting, that's the
He's
point I want to make.
fantastic at bringing cars and dogs to photo shoots. He's the best in the world at that. 95 mil.
What I will say is that given this and Mel not being the coach, I think this was the only move that you could make. Because I think just visually, semantically, you like that word? Yeah. I don't even know if that fits, but having Mark with the program, I think just provides like a good feeling for the fan base. I'd be interested to know how the players feel about this unnecessarily, because like Dantonio obviously is Michigan State folklore, but like none of these guys on the team, I don't even know if played for Dantonio. Maybe I think maybe Noah Kim's a leftover. There might be a couple leftovers, but most
I
of these
don't think
guys
so.
are no okay. But most of these
I could be wrong, but I think
okay.
I don't think so. I think everybody's gone pretty much.
All right, so most of these guys are Mel Tucker guys, and despite the situation, players are going to ride for their coach in some situations. So it'd be interesting to know how these guys kind of buy in. I think by keeping the staff and making Harlan the intern coach, that'll help on that side. And then you bring in Dantonio as like the stabilizer. He's the culture guy. He's the guy you can put in the football program. He's got a knowledge of it. He understands what it means. You mentioned the fact that you don't know if Mel understood what it meant to be like the head football coach at Michigan State. That like Dantonio doesn't, he's not going to have that issue. I think he understands it. And I'm actually a big fan of Mel's staff. Like I like Harlan, I like Darian Harris, I like all those guys. I think, okay, let me not say all. I like most of the guys on that staff. I think they got something there. So yeah, I think it's a good move, and it's also been received very well. Like once that announcement came out for a downtime with Michigan State's football fan base, that seemed to be like a little bit of a beam of light that was injected into the program by bringing him back.
Yeah. Okay. I want to start my Mark Dantonio thoughts with this. I think that Mark is incredibly unselfish in this spot. He should be on a beach playing with his grandkids. The way, like, I'll speak to it more in a second, but the way his tenure at Michigan State ended was not clean necessarily. It wasn't a high note for a coach that should have ended on a high note, in my opinion. Like he is, in my opinion, either the greatest or second greatest coach in Michigan State football history. He built the entire Michigan State program into what it became in the 2000s, right? In the 2010s. Like Mark is the reason for all of the success. He's the reason Michigan State was even in a position to go out and get a coach who was sought after enough as Mel Tucker, right? He cares so much about this university. And I said it at the top of this. Like Mel Tucker didn't. that's why Mel Tucker even does what he did here. Like for someone to be so selfish to make the mistake he made, ultimately it shows he didn't care. Because if you care about anyone at this university, you don't do that. You just aren't selfish enough. Mark has his faults. Was the program in a high spot on the field at the end of his tenure? No. Were there some questions about other things? Yes. What I know unequivocally is that Mark Dantonio would die for Michigan State University. And him coming out of retirement for a program that, quite frankly, was happy to see him leave. And the fan base, for the most part, even though they love Mark, I know they love Mark. They still loved Mark. But at the time, they were ready to move on from Mark. For Mark to come back in a time of crisis and say, okay, I want to be a stabilizer in some sense. I'm here for you. What did Haller say? He said he called him on Sunday morning and Mark said, anything you need, I'm there. Like, I believe that. And I think that's incredible, quite frankly. Like, I think that's awesome. So I tweeted out, actually, I want to read it word for word because look, all of my comments right now, I'll be honest, they're jaded by the fact that I have a personal relationship with the Dantonio family. I grew up with the Dantonio family. Like, I get it. So I'm not saying my experience with this is 100% fact, but this is what I believe. I tweeted, I have no clue what will happen on the field this season or beyond it, but I know that this man returning at a critical time for both the football program and the university will have a massive impact in restoring something good. I believe that because I know he cares. He cares enough to come back and just try and help in any way possible. But some stuff has happened in since that tweet that's really pissed me off. And I want to dive into this a little more if you'll entertain this. So
whenever I ever respond to something like that and be like, I don't want you to, don't do that.
Can I read some of my mentions word for word after that tweet?
Please.
Okay. Should I read the ats on this? Should we call some people out or should I just read the tweets?
I kind of think you should read the ats.
Okay, let's read the ats. This is from Kim Bergsma at 1540 Pine. She says it's amazing actually that they are doing this and that the MSU fan base is suddenly treating him like a hero when they have mostly been furious with him since his sudden resignation amidst sexual assault issues with players. It's surreal. I don't think anybody was mostly furious with Mark Dantonio ever, and I have more on these allegations of Mark later. At PT Warg, PTW says, hey, Craig, why isn't Mike D'Antoni going still their coach? Thanks. I'll hang up now. Lovely comment. At Shazam Daddy with a Michigan logo as his icon says, Larry Nassar would like a word. Fantastic. At Jay Brandamore said he mishandled scandals too. At Go Blue Joe _19 said he destroyed the program leading to his quote retirement. There's like 25 others here that you could go through. And we probably need to walk back some facts on a lot of this stuff. But I just want to say this. It really bothers me especially with football coaches. I think it is a football specific thing, but it really bothers me that rival fans get to paint whatever narratives they want on a person based on the successes of a coach, kind of. Like, here's some facts for you. Every football coach in the country has had players that play for them that have some sort of legal troubles. I'm not saying Mark Dantonio is a perfect person, but I am saying the things he was accused of are not what Michigan fans in my mentions are claiming happened here. Mark Dantonio is not responsible for anything in the Larry Nassar scandal. That's disgusting as an implication whatsoever. Mark Dantonio was accused when he, quote unquote, retired, whatever people saying he ran from. He was accused by a former staffer, Curtis Blackwell, of a few things. One, hiring some parents of football players to be on staff. That's not a crime, number one. And two, some minor recruiting violations that allowed Blackwell to recruit off campus. Those were the things he was accused of by Curtis Blackwell.
There was one more that was kind of bad, though.
What's the third one?
The Roberson situation.
Okay, I'm going to get to the sexual assault stuff in a second. But first, Blackwell's stuff was thrown out because Blackwell didn't even file his report on time. He didn't file his paperwork. Okay, so like, that's what he was accused of at the time of ducking, was Curtis Blackwell's allegations, his impending lawsuit. He didn't even file the paperwork on time after. Outside the Lines had a report that 16 Michigan State players were accused of rape or violence against women. Mark Dantonio, the one mistake he made, in my opinion, was when he came out and said there were 2 instances. He said that in a press conference after the fact. There were not 2 instances. There were 16 instances. 16 instances in 11 years is obviously not good. But when you are a head coach of roughly 70 plus people, the odds that one of them makes a big mistake under your watch is pretty high. In fact, it happens everywhere. Like, 16 sexual assaults don't happen everywhere, but there are legal issues everywhere. In fact, They're like, we're celebrating Urban Meyer's Florida era in a documentary right now. That entire documentary is about the fact that he coached a bunch of horrible people.
Yeah.
Nobody cared at the time because his teams won, and now we're celebrating. Making documentaries.
Georgia and Kirby Smart right now.
Like it's literally happening everywhere, and I'm struggling with this because I view so much of like the dialogue and the narrative of Mark Dantonio as a person, as a coach, to me became accepted stuff because he was losing football games at the end of his tenure. And so Michigan, like in my opinion, Michigan State fans wanted Mark out because they were losing football games and they thought they could do better. Turns out that probably wasn't true, one. And two, like the narrative on him as a person now got soured, in my opinion, because he was losing football games. And there's a guy in the state right now who is winning football games, who is suspended by his own school, who has had his own issues here. And if Michigan fans want to condemn Mark Dantonio for all this stuff, like, oh, what a horrible program to allow this guy back in. Like, can we talk through some allegations of what's gone on with Jim here? Like, he's outwardly defended Bo Schembechler for years and nobody cares. There's a girl named Quinn Moffitt. I didn't even know about this. Quinn Moffitt was a Michigan student, drugged and sexually assaulted. She died by a Michigan football player. Her mom wrote letters and called Jim Harbaugh. They had a 17-minute phone conversation. The players remained on the team. The names never came public. They still play. Like, this happened I believe this came out like a year ago. So, and here's the truth of it for me. I'm not saying anything's right or wrong. I'm not trying to compare tragedies. What I am trying to say is that more often than not, these narratives end up tied into your success as a football coach. And that's gross to me. Like, if Jim Harbaugh never beat Ohio State, then the narrative on him is probably kind of shitty person, right? But because he's got this team top 3 in the country, get back to the playoff, he's an angel, right? And maybe if Mark Dantonio didn't have a couple bad years at the end of his tenure, maybe he's an angel too. But I just think it's gross. I would be careful is all I'm saying. Like, if I'm a Michigan fan, I wouldn't throw stones at the idea of Mark Dantonio to returning at a time Michigan State just needs a good person. Because truly, in his heart of hearts, I believe to my core, Mark Dantonio is a good person. And he cares about Michigan State football. He's not perfect, but that's something that this team and this program needs desperately right now. And I needed to say that because it's really bothering me how many Michigan fans are acting like Mark, like tying him into Larry Nassar, man. Really? It's crazy.
Yeah. No, I think you hit the nail on the head. I agree with all that. And, you know, I don't know what it looks like going forward necessarily for Michigan State football, because obviously, like, the intern tag, who's going to be the next guy? Is it going to be, you know, somebody from inside the program? Is it going to be a national hire? Who really knows? But I think right now the move that they're making is going to be a stabilizer, and it'll be shine a positive light onto the program at a time when shit isn't necessarily going well.
Yeah.
Like, there was questions being asked about Mel coming into this season, by the way. Like, that was a real thing. Like, people were starting to already doubt what he was doing, and there was a very, very negative thing. I don't know what the word, a negative cloud around the program with the trajectory of the football team. So this gives, I mean, I guess, I don't know if you want to call this a start over or the beginning of a rebuild or whatever, but for the given situation, I think this is the best stabilizer that could be put into place for Michigan State football.
Yeah. Are you sprinkling Michigan State money line at all? Washington at home, first game.
Yes, but only because I'm a firm believer that, and we talked about this offline, betting home dogs always will feel well.
Do we know the line yet?
17 is the last one I saw.
It's 17? What's the money line? Oh my God.
I don't even know if it's available.
I'm like licking my lips right now. Card, I'm going to sprinkle money line here. I'm just going to say it. And I think there's an opportunity. I hate to make it about football, but like, Can you imagine if Michigan State wins this game with Mark Dantonio on a headset?
I mean, it'll be scenes.
It would be a moment. That's all I'm saying. They have an opportunity for a moment.
Plus 575 on the money line. It's down to 16 now.
A little teaser of the newsletter this week. Michigan State money line is going to be involved in a couple plays for me. I look, man. Everybody knows it's not a surprise. I'm a Mark Dantonio guy. I've said that. It's the reason I'm a Michigan State football fan, despite my mutant fandom, was because I loved Mark. I thought everything he did was basically, if I could create a football coach in a lab, it would be him. I don't think he's gonna like come in and make this offense hum, but I think he can win this locker room, and I think he can help. And I think just him being there at all in any capacity could have an effect. And also, I've minimized it. This Michigan State team has some dudes. They're not a good football team, but they got
guys.
They got some dudes. So I've said it for football. I think their football coach
and what Michigan State coach that you could think of in the past was good at maybe taking some guys that were on the verge of being dudes or guys that were, I don't know, under the radar dudes and made them dudes.
I'm just saying, I've said I think their football coach has been an inept football coach for a few seasons. Now we're replacing inept with competent, and they got some dudes. Intrigued. Final thing on the catchphrase. I know I said you shouldn't make jokes about the Tuck coming stuff, obviously. Can we at least go redacted coming? We're a redacted pod. Are we giving him the redacted treatment?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I'm gonna give him the redacted treatment.
No. Okay.
Maybe give him the redacted treatment. Well, to be determined. But the best part about all this is this shit's dead. That's dead. That I'll never have to see that again. I never want to see my team get beat for a 40-yard fly route and they get up doing this and then get a personal foul penalty after the 40-yard fly route and everyone's doing this. That goes away.
Hypothetically, maybe looking back, we should have realized the guy who had 7 different catchphrases that all had some sort of sexual innuendo wasn't the guy. Maybe.
Okay. All right. Shift. What's next?
Team USA. Team USA. It feels weird to do anything. Should we just end the episode? It feels weird to do anything after the Mel Tucker stuff.
It does feel sort of weird, but I think we gotta, right?
Just push on. I mean, we just did like an hour, didn't we?
Yeah, but I mean, but it was needed.
You want to push on?
Let's push on.
Okay, let's push on.